Hello grade 12, welcome to another virtual lesson on inquiries, investigations, and immersion. This is Jasper Angeles, your virtual teacher for this lesson. To better capture the essence of this lesson, please do focus not only on the concepts that will be discussed, but also on the examples where concepts are applied. To begin with our lesson, let me show you this picture. Are you familiar with this building? What is this class? Write your answer on the comment section. Alright, this is actually Burj Khalifa. As a skyscraper in Dubai, United Arab Emirates with a total height of 829.8 meters, this has been the tallest structure and building in the world since its topping out in 2009. Now, in order for this building to stand at this height, what do you think are things that the engineers and architects must secure? In other words, what makes this building stand firm, class? Come on, write your answers on the comment section. What makes this building stand firm? If your answer is a strong foundation, you are certainly correct. The higher the building is, the stronger the foundations must be. A while ago, you've seen Burj Khalifa. How about these? What do we call these things, class? What are these? Write your answers on the comment section. If your answer is research papers, you got this right. Now, do we need a foundation for the research we will conduct? I think that based on your experience, majority of the answer will be yes. And indeed, the answer is a yes. The next question is, why? Why is there a need for a foundation in the research we will conduct? Let me show you another picture. Class, this is the UST main building in España, Manila. Though the university was established in the Spanish times, this main building you can see was finished in 1927. Now, how many years have passed since the completion of this building? Maybe more or less 100 years. But even if it has stood for a long time and has witnessed a plethora of typhoons and earthquakes, the building remains standing. And why is that? Alright, it's primarily because of the foundations of the building. Now, why do we need to have a foundation for the building? Write your answer in the comment section, class. Why do we need a foundation for this building? Alright, for it to be strong and lasting. Now, let's get back to research. I'll be asking again the question, why is there a need for a foundation for the research that will be conducted? But before that, I want you to also tell me or answer this question for me. What is the purpose of research? Why do we conduct research? Can you please write your answer in the comment section? Alright. Some of you may say that research brings answers to questions, while others may also say that it's an endeavor to provide a solution to a problem. Now, the question is this. What is really being strengthened by the foundations of the research you will or have conducted? What is being strengthened by those foundations? Is it the methods, the RRL, the chapter 4? What is being strengthened by the foundations? Of course, the ones strengthened are the answers or solutions that were crafted or produced out of the research conducted. Now, the question is this. What is the importance of creating a solution with a firm foundation? Let us say, for example, that through your research, you found out that online classes will be more effective if synchronous classes are shortened. Why do you need to have a strong foundation for this result? Come on, write your answers in the comment section. Let's say you have done a research and the research resulted into this conclusion that online classes will be more effective if there would be less synchronous classes. Will everyone believe that? If that is the case, why is there a need for a strong foundation? If your answer is for the result to be more believable or reliable, then you are correct once again. Class, this is just like presenting a new information to others. They will not believe it right away without the founding details. Now, what do you think is the foundation of a research paper? If buildings would have cement, wood, blocks, and other construction supplies as materials needed for the foundation, how about in research? What are the things we need in order to have a strong foundation? If you are thinking about the findings of studies in the past, I believe you have really taken your previous research subjects seriously. Again, through the past researchers, we can better view the problem we would like to describe or attack with the solution. Their observations or the observations of the past researchers would make us the men on top, looking at a better view because of the previous findings of these past researchers. Now, aside from giving support to the study we will conduct, previous research papers and literature provide basis for the problem you will investigate or we will investigate in our own researches. This seatbelt, for example, is a product of research. Now, we do not use this without a basis, of course. To see the basis for using the seatbelt, we ask the question, why do we need to use seatbelts? All right, so we go back to the basis of seatbelts, of course, in the same way that your research paper would have a basis. Seatbelts class is a preventive measure against the force mentioned in Newton's first law of motion, which tells us that an object stays at rest will remain at rest unless acted on by an unbalanced force. This means that if you push a ball, the ball will continue rolling until another force, which we call inertia, stops it from rolling. Now, a seatbelt class produces what we call inertia, or that force to counter the flowing linear motion. If you do not have a seatbelt, you will be thrown out of the car because of the flowing or because the car is moving as fast as you are while you're driving. A block on the road like this, the block that you can see on the screen, will not stop you from accelerating. It only stops the car. Right? You would still continue moving as the car. That's why you're going to be thrown out. This event is prevented by the seatbelt, which stops the human body as that car stops. This is the reason why we can say that seatbelts have a basis. They were invented to address Newton's first law of motion, which is the law of inertia. This basis we're talking about, class, is what we call the conceptual framework of the study. This is the ground structure for any research paper, the one that supports or provide basis for the conduct of your study. These arrows, on the other hand, the ones that you can see, that represent the different columns, serve as the review of literature and studies from which the researcher may also pick an alternative framework. Now, you might be asking, how should we write the conceptual framework? You know, class, conceptual framework would be easy if you have already read through your materials for the review of related literature and studies. If you see it befitting as the basis of the study that will be conducted, then you can choose that literature including its paragraph and label it conceptual framework. Given the strategy in writing the conceptual framework, you need to begin with looking for related literatures and related studies. From the paragraphs, you can write for related literature and studies, you can get your conceptual framework. By the way, related literatures refer to books, articles, or any material from which information about the variables or topic can be explored. Related studies, on the other hand, refer to only research papers or theses done about the variables or the topics similar to the ones you will explore in your own research. Now, let's have activity number 1. Here, I'd like you to identify the main idea and the supporting details of the paragraph. From the paragraph, we will take a pattern that we will use in writing a paragraph in related literature. Class, the sample related literature paragraph here comes from the research, the use of metacognitive reading instruction or MRI to improve the reading ability of grade 9 students. This paragraph covers the article of Sheila Valencia entitled When High School Students Struggle with Textbook Reading. So this is the basis for the related literature paragraph that we will analyze in a little while. Let's see the paragraph. Identifying purpose, giving a good reading homework assignment, and teaching students to self-monitor for understanding. These are the teaching strategies proposed by Valencia 2014 in order to lessen the struggle that high school students face when it comes to reading. The first strategy, which is identifying the purpose, allows the students to establish the reason for reading and to identify the pieces of information they need to learn from the reading text. It tolerates the ability of the students to prioritize and plan for reading, a self-monitoring technique based on metacognitive reading instruction. Giving a good reading homework assignment strategy, on the other hand, attacks ambiguity in reading tasks and lets the students realize the purpose for reading, approach to use while reading, an idea on where they will apply what they learned from the reading text. Lastly, teaching students to self-monitor for understanding strategy means teaching the students to check their comprehension, ask questions, and highlight important details in the text. Through these strategies, students, according to Valencia 2014, can monitor their understanding of reading texts, which are rather compact and loaded with too much information in the present time. This article only proves that the use of metacognitive reading instruction helps the learners overcome reading struggles in the current educational setting. Now, based on your reading, what do you think is the main idea of the cited article? As you can see, the paragraph seems to be divided into three parts. These parts explain the three manifestations of the main idea in this paragraph. Again, what is the main idea? What do we call identifying purpose, giving a reading homework, assignments, or giving a good reading homework assignment, and teaching students to self-monitor for understanding? Write your answer on the chat box. What do we call these three? The correct answer is teaching strategies. Alright, this is the correct answer because all of the sentences in this paragraph explain about the three mentioned teaching strategies. Now, if we have the main idea, we likewise have supporting details. What do you think are the supporting details for these teaching strategies? The answer is simple. The supporting details, therefore, are the ones considered as teaching strategies by the writer. They are the following underlined phrases here. Alright? Alright, so next question. Where is the discussion of the first supporting detail? What is the first supporting detail? Of course, it is the point identifying the purpose. Now, there are only two sentences in this paragraph. Which do you think is the discussion of the first supporting detail? Come on, write your answer in the comment section. Is it the first or the second one? Which do you think is the discussion of the first supporting detail? The first sentence or the second sentence? Alright. Of course, it is the second sentence because it enumerates here the benefits of the identification of purpose when it comes to reading assignments or giving reading assignments. Let us proceed with the second part of the paragraph, which is the next supporting detail in this particular paragraph. Which is the next supporting detail in this paragraph? Based, of course, on what we have pointed out as supporting details to the main idea, the correct answer is the giving of a good reading homework assignment, which is the second point, if you can still remember, in the supporting details part. How about the last supporting detail class to the main idea? Which of the sentences here supports the last supporting detail? The first, the second, or the third sentence? Again, which of the sentences here supports the last supporting detail? Is it the first, the second, or the third sentence? The answer is, of course, the first sentence here. Teaching students to self-monitor for understanding strategy means teaching the students to check comprehension, ask questions, and highlight important details in the text. This would be the third supporting detail as consistent in the the three supporting details that we have had a while ago attached to the main idea, which is teaching strategies. Now, what do we call the last two sentences in this paragraph for the related literature? Since this summarizes, or these two sentences summarize the main idea and the three supporting details, this is what we call as the concluding sentence. Now, what are our observations on the paragraph that we have had for the literature or for the related literature? Note that the three parts I've shown you are constituents of the same paragraph. This means to say that all of them are part only of one paragraph. Remember also that we're still on the writing of related literature or the paragraphs for books, articles, or any related source with the study we will conduct or have conducted, but outside of the realm of research articles. Again, remember that we're still on the writing of related literature or paragraphs, okay, we get from books, articles, or any source related with the study we will conduct or have, but still outside of the realm of research articles. Now, what are our observations on the paragraph we have read, which is part of the related literature? Number one, it began with the topic sentence that contains the main idea. Second, the sentences after the topic sentence talk about the three supporting ideas present in the topic sentence. And lastly, the paragraph ended with the concluding sentence related to the main idea and focus of the research. In other words, when writing the paragraphs for related literature, this is the pattern we can use. Topic sentence containing the main idea, followed by supporting sentences containing supporting details to the main idea, and the concluding sentence that makes a smooth cohesion to the next paragraph in the related literature's part. To remember this easily, we can use the term Tosuko method for writing the related literature. Let's try writing a paragraph for related literature based on a text about depression. We will of course use the Tosuko method. Here's the article. Let me read this for you. What is Depression by Rana Parekh, MD, January 2017. Depression, major depressive disorder, is a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. Fortunately, it's also treatable. Depression causes feelings of sadness and or loss of interest in activities once enjoyed. It can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems and can decrease a person's ability to function at work and at home. Depression symptoms can vary from mild to severe and can include feeling sad or having depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite, weight loss or gain unrelated to dieting, trouble sleeping or sleeping too much, loss of energy or increased fatigue, increase in purposeless physical activity or slowed movements and speech actions or speech, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, thoughts of suicide. Alright, so now, what do you think is the main idea of this article? Okay, what do you think is the main idea of this article, class, from the things that we have read already? I'll give you 20 seconds to think about the answer. Again, what is the main idea of this article that we have just read? Write your answer on the comment section. Go. Alright, so what do you think is the correct answer? Okay, correct. It is depression symptoms. Now, for us to write a paragraph about this article, the next thing we have to do is categorize the symptoms. Alright, so since the main idea is about symptoms, we need to categorize the symptoms that are present in this article. When we say categorize, we mean classify the symptoms according to a certain group. It means to say that we will group them together. Now, reading this part of the article, what do you think will be the three categories we can use to group the symptoms we have seen a while ago? So there were several symptoms in the succeeding part of this article. But which three categories mentioned in this part can we use in order to group the symptoms together? I will be giving you 20 seconds to write your answer on the comment section. Timer begins. Alright, so what are your answers? To write the paragraph for related literature based on this article, we will categorize the symptoms into ones related to how the person feels, thinks, and acts. Alright, so definitely that particular point was also observable or evident in this part. Going to this part of the article, we will see that we can associate the ones in red with symptoms related with feelings. How about the ones related with thinking? Which of the following is related with that category of symptoms? If you're thinking about these 2 points at the bottom, then you are on the right track. The rest of the symptoms present the rest of the symptoms present ones we can categorize under the actions category of symptoms. Now, to formally write the paragraph for related literature, we also have to paraphrase this part of the article. Again, symptoms are related with feelings, thinking, and actions, right? So to paraphrase those, we can use emotional, cognitive, and physical symptoms. These 3 terms represent the ones mentioned in the article. From these terms, we can write our own sentences bearing the symptoms we have seen from the article. Note that in each part, we do not need to write everything from the list. It's important, again, to paraphrase the material. Now, following the Tusuko method, we can write the related literature paragraph for the article in this way. According to Parek 2017, symptoms related to depression may be emotional, cognitive, or physical. Emotional symptoms include feeling down, disregard for activities enjoyed before, disdain for self-worth, and disdain for self-worth. On the other hand, cognitive symptoms manifest in terms of one's inability to concentrate and suicidal thoughts. Lastly, a depressed person shows physical symptoms in form of appetite alterations, difficulties in sleeping, fatigue, and meaningless gestures. Though depression is a mental illness, one may see if someone is suffering from it through its symptoms. The one colored in yellow class is the topic sentence bearing the main idea, which is depression symptoms. This is followed by 3 sentences that capture the 3 categories of symptoms or the supporting details of the main idea. The paragraph was ended with a concluding sentence. Now, so much for the writing of related literature. How about the ways on how we can write the related study? When writing the related literature, we use the Tosuko method. What method can we use in writing the related study, which is comprised of research articles we can find about the research we will conduct? In this activity class, we will read a paragraph coming from the related studies part. This paragraph, of course, is based on a research article. Our goal here is to identify the rationale, method used, results, and conclusions of the study through the paragraph. From there, we will find out how the related study or the RS is written. Again, we get this paragraph from the same research. This paragraph will analyze, on the other hand, the study that comes from Chelemani 2013 about reading. Let me read this paragraph for you. By the way, this paragraph is already one made by the writer for the related studies part. This is not anymore a raw paragraph coming from the article. So again, this is already an inclusion to the related studies part. So we're just analyzing it. In the context of high school, Chelemani 2013 conducted the research that aimed at determining the effect of metacognitive reading instruction on the reading comprehension level of 18 middle school students of Calapet, Pondicherry, India. For 3 months, the researcher utilized a reading intervention that included the use of advanced organizers, directed attention, functional planning, selective attention, self-management, self-monitoring, regulating, orchestrating, evaluating, and self-evaluation. Pre-tests and post-tests were also utilized in order to identify the degree of difference before and after the intervention. From a mean of 8.73 in the pretest, the participants obtained a mean of 54.39 in the post-test. Using analysis of mean between the results of the pretest and the post-test, the researcher have concluded that metacognitive reading instruction has a positive impact on the reading comprehension level of student participants. Indeed, metacognitive reading instruction is an effective instruction not only in college but also in high school. Now, which parts of the paragraph tells you about the rationale of Chilemani here? The first or the second sentence? Okay, we just go back to the paragraph that we had a while ago. Right, which of the two sentences, there are two sentences only in this paragraph, which of the two, okay, presents the rationale of the study of Chilemani? Right, write your answer on the comment section. Timer begins. Okay, so what is your answer? It is definitely the first sentence. Okay, which word suggested the rationale or the reason for the conduct of the study? You're correct if you're thinking about the word aimed. The word aimed suggested that the first sentence is indeed the rationale. The next sentence here is, of course, the method used. Our keywords would be 3 months utilized, and the following things added to the intervention. These things are normally what we see in the methods part of the study. Now, on the second part of the paragraph, we can see two other parts that we can consider in writing a paragraph on a related study. The first sentence is the second part, or the first sentence in the second part is undeniable or undeniably still part of the methods, but the second one is already part of the results. It tells us that the pretest mean is 8.73, while the post-test is 54.39. The results part was ended with the conclusion, which is colored in green. The conclusion tells us what the researcher in the study realized based on the results he or she has obtained in the study. We can see that the researcher realized that the strategy he or she is implementing or has employed paved the way for a positive impact in reading. From the example, we can see that a paragraph devoted to one related study has the following elements: the rationale, the method used, results, and conclusions. For us to remember this easily, we will use the RMRC pattern. Alright, so we have the RMRC pattern. Do not forget this pattern, class, when you're writing a paragraph on a related study. Note, however, that this way of writing the related study, or the RS, is different from writing a paragraph about related literature. There, in the writing of paragraphs for related literature, we have the Tosuko method. Here, we have the RMRC for the related studies. Now, after writing the review of related literature and studies, or the RRLS, you can easily write the conceptual framework. What you can do is just get one paragraph or mix two paragraphs coming from the RRLS and make them your conceptual framework. But before you go there on the writing part, or before we go on the writing part, let us first define what is conceptual framework. Class, the conceptual framework of the study is a written or visual representation or presentation that explains either graphically or in narrative form the main things to be studied, the key factors, concepts, or variables, and the presumed relationship among them. Your study, of course, has variables. In the conceptual framework, you're just basically explaining what are the variables involved in the study, and if in any way is there a relationship between and among them. Again, it is a paragraph or visual graphic that tells the readers the variables involved in your study. In quantitative studies class, the relationship between and among variables are even defined in the conceptual framework because this relationship will be the basis for the hypothesis. This, however, is not only the basis of the hypothesis of the study. The conceptual framework can be observed also as the basis of the whole study. This part tells the readers why your research is feasible and significant. Now, like what I've said a while ago, the writing of the conceptual framework is rather easy if you are done with the RRLS. This paragraph we have made moments ago can actually be used as a conceptual framework. Suppose this is the title and the statement of the problem of the study. Depression awareness level of grade 11 students in Manila Science High School for school year 2019-2020. The research questions are, what is the depression awareness level of the respondents? What is the profile of the respondents based on age and gender? And lastly, is there a significant difference between the depression awareness level of males and females? If I'm the researcher, I can argue, class, that awareness on depression can be categorized into four. Awareness on causes, symptoms, medications, and effects. Since I have here 4 points, I need 3 research papers or 4 research papers that would serve as basis. This class would be the visual representation of the conceptual framework. This includes your hypotheses, if not your idea, on what depression awareness means. Note that this did not come from any book or title. This is your own idea, class. Now, your idea cannot stand on its own. That's why we need the ideas of others coming from the RRLS as support in the same way that a building is supported by a strong or a very strong foundation. Now, how can we use this paragraph from the related study? Remember, class, that since the framework talks of 4 categories of awareness, this paragraph can only account for 1 point, which is awareness of symptoms. When we write the conceptual framework, you may begin with the phrase, the present study is established on the concept that, or in the concept of. Here we have the present study is established on the concept that awareness on depression involves awareness on 4 domains. Symptoms, according to Parec 2017. Medications, according to Bautista 2015. Effects, according to Ballesteros 2013. And causes, according to Malapitan 2014. Note that the next paragraph is about the awareness of symptoms coming from the article we have written for the related literature a while ago. This paragraph, however, cannot stand without any sentence marker. This is the reason why we have to put on sentences or a sentence that will make the paragraph really significant in the context of the framework. Now, let us have another example of a conceptual framework. Suppose that the title of the research is the perceptions of education students on the writing process and its components. With the research questions, number 1, which part of the writing process is the most difficult for students? Pre-writing, drafting, revising, or editing? Number 2, what are the writing components that students perceive as problematic in their own writing? Content, organization, coherence, word choice, vocabulary, mechanics, or grammar. Class, remember that the conceptual framework is about the idea of the researcher plus the basis that support that idea. Here, the idea of the researcher is that the writing process involves 4 parts: pre-writing, drafting, revising, and editing, in addition to the writing components mentioned. Given these things, class, the conceptual framework must include information that supports the idea that there are 4 writing processes and that there are really writing components in writing. The basis I'm pertaining to is very well evident in this paragraph from the conceptual framework that supports the first question. This concept on the 4 writing processes was supported by Tribble 1996. As for the second question, the researcher was also successful in looking for a basis. The idea on the components of writing was supported by Raimis 1983, Richards 1990, and Hedge 1998. Even the word perceptions in the title of the study has a basis. This one coming from Given 1998, who said that a study on perceptions allows the researcher to identify how a person apprehends, interprets, and experiences a certain stimulus, thereby making the study an important one in the field of writing education. Now, do not forget, class, that the concluding paragraph of your conceptual framework must be one that explains the figurative or visual conceptual framework after the narrative form of your framework. Here in this concluding paragraph, the researcher tells us how the variables, as mentioned in the research question, work. Basically, the visual part of the conceptual framework makes the paragraph presentation more understandable for the readers. So the same process that you have placed on the narrative part of the conceptual framework would just be a reflection on the graphical part or the visual part of the conceptual framework. Now, you might be asking, why is there no hypothesis here? Since this is a descriptive survey, there is no need for a research hypothesis to be tested. In this kind of study, the goal is to just describe the variables through the data gathered from the respondents. But if this is correlational or experimental method, then there would be a form of a hypothesis here. Now, in a nutshell, you may write the conceptual framework using the following practical steps. First, begin with an introduction that orients the readers about the variables of the study. Remember the phrase, this study is established on the concept of, or on the concept, and then write the concept. Next, explore the concept behind the first variable. Cite the source and state the reason why that variable was taken into consideration. Remember also that each variable must have its own paragraph for clarity and organization of thought. Then, proceed with the paragraph about the second variable, and so on and so forth. Finally, end the paragraph or end this conceptual framework in the paragraph that restates the hypotheses of the study. This concluding paragraph does not always have to be a hypothesis, class. This could be a reiteration of your big idea if this is a descriptive survey research. Now, going back to the writing of the RRLS, we begin, of course, with the introduction to the chapter. Class, the conceptual framework, though based on the RRLS, is still part of chapter 1. Again, the conceptual framework, though based on the RRLS, is still part of chapter 1. The review of related literature and studies is a whole new chapter, or what we call as the chapter 2. So since this is the case, it needs an introduction like this, or this one. Before a certain research is implemented, it's important to present reviews made on literature and studies related to the present investigation. Concepts, approaches, data gathering techniques, findings, and analysis connected with the research on the difficulty of writing as perceived by PNU students are divided into two parts: related literature and related studies. There are no local reviews for literature and studies. All right, so this is a sample introduction, class. The important thing here is that you're able to at least introduce the readers to what the chapter will tell them. Now, after the introduction, write the heading for the related literature before writing the paragraphs you have for the related literature of the study. Remember not to write anymore the title of the book or the article once the author or writer of those books or articles were already written in the paragraph. Class, normally, in a full-blown research, there are 10 paragraphs for both the related literature and related studies. But of course, this is negotiable with your instructor. Now, after those 10 paragraphs that reflect 10 articles or books about the research that will be conducted, write the heading for the related studies. After this, write another set of paragraphs which this time are all about or will be all about the research articles you have read about the study you will pursue. Finally, end with a synthesis about the cited literatures and studies or you can also focus on similarities and differences between the present research and the previous studies. This is an example of a concluding paragraph for Chapter 2, or the review of related literature and studies. The current research has similarities and differences with the cited literature and studies. In terms of similarities, the research and the cited reviews both agree that writing is the most difficult skill in teaching and learning. Also, most of the studies performed were in descriptive survey method, wherein the group would give out questionnaires to fill out. So you see, everything placed or written here are all about the similarities between and among the studies and the literature cited by the researcher. On the next part of the conclusion to the RRLS, you would see some differences, like the only method of the group is conducting a survey, while in the researches done in the studies, or the researches done in the studies dealt more on interviews and writing journals. All right, so here we can see that the researcher is trying to identify how each and every research in the chapter 2 differs from one another. The important thing here in the concluding paragraph is that after the writing of the related literature and studies, you can discern on which points are the articles and studies similar or different. Your understanding here will greatly benefit you when you are writing the interpretation and analysis of results. I do pray that this topic was delivered in such a way that everyone had a clear gist of or as to how the conceptual framework and the review of related literature and studies are written. Please do rewatch this video if there are points you have questions on. This is again Jasper Angeles, your virtual teacher for inquiries, investigations, and immersion. See you next time.